I know there's been like a lot of statistics around marriages ending in divorce because of finance. How are those numbers looking now? Is it still the case that most marriages end because of finance? And what do you think could, you know, prevent that from happening? Things that you can do up front to prevent things ending like that, but over money.
Well, it's actually a fallacy. Most marriages don't end because of finances.
Mm.
They end for other reasons. There are much higher statistics above and beyond finances. But in terms of whether or not finances could be a factor, to avoid that issue, it's important to have an alignment of how you value money because it's very, very challenging if you're with someone who's a super spender and the other one is a super saver. That's going to be a constant friction in your marriage. So yeah, so I would start there. See how when people are dating or courting each other, whether it's for business or what have you, find ways to discuss how you handle money because for example, if you are someone who invests in a property with someone else, and you have one person who's super extravagant and wants to spend a ton of money on certain fixtures because they have to have the top of the line, but the way you are, you're very frugal and you're more into finding things that you're repurposing or whatever, that's going to be a huge conflict right there, right? And that could add to the demise of the partnership. And it's very similar with couples. But yeah, there that is a fallacy. Finance is not the top reason. I'm just trying to think right now because I'm on the spot. What is the reason?
Yeah, I'm curious now. If it's not finance, what is it?
No, it's not. It's not finance, and it's not cheating. It's I have to get back to you on that. We'll have to do another session
Yes.
because I can't remember because I was looking up those because I've done a lot of work in the divorce space, and a lot of people believe that it's finance. And I was just doing research about 4 months ago. And that's when I realized, oh, this is the bigger issue.
Yes, we have to come back to that one. But just staying on that line of finance, you mentioned prenup from the beginning. Like, people, when they talk prenup and love, it kind of, they're like, if you love me, then you'll trust me, and we don't need a prenup. And of course, with co ownership, I created the real estate prenup, which is, I got that from marriage. When you see celebrities, they have all this money, but they're able to kind of talk about the what ifs up front, and with co ownership, there's always people that are going to think like, what if there's conflict, right? What if we can't get along? What is my exit strategy? What is my out? So how important, and I know prenups are important. But do people do those a lot now? Are you finding more and more that people are signing prenups before they get married?
Yeah, because I work with a lot of folks who are middle aged
Mm-hmm.
and have already had previous relationships, maybe have children that they want to inherit certain things, and have also amassed a certain amount of assets and their net worth is at its highest point in that moment when they now start a new relationship. And so yeah, it's very important for them to protect it because divorces, so when you talk about the percentage, by the way, the number one reason for divorce is communication. There's yeah, there's a challenge with communication, but people, so let me just give you an example. Right now, the divorce rate might be in the 40 something, like mid to not very, very high. It's not 50% like people think. And for your first marriage, well, your second marriage, the divorce rate goes up higher to in the 60s. And your third marriage goes into the 70s. And when I mean 70s, this is the likelihood of another divorce.
Wow.
So you are foolish if you're not protecting your money and your assets, especially if you have children that you want to leave, if you're thinking about legacy. So, and the other beauty of a prenup is that you're working through a lot of things in advance in the way that, we get health insurance. We hope we never get sick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get sick, you have the insurance.
Right.
Right.
You get, so it's the same thing, right? A prenup is like, we hope we never have to use this, but if the time comes, this is going to minimize the amount of conflict in that dissolving of a relationship, in the same way in the dissolving of a business. You really need to tick all those boxes and make sure that you're looking at, how do we separate this relationship financially and, as a business. Otherwise things start to fall apart, right?
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the same with divorces. A prenup is important, because if you get really angry in that transaction, and now you're just thinking you're not even thinking, you're just being emotional about it. You drain each other's assets, just paying for lawyers. And then the children, if you have them, are the ones who are suffering. So I really think it's a good thing to have. And I don't think that people should feel that you have less love for them just because you're establishing a prenup.
Right.
I just a good measure to have in place.
Yes, and going through those what ifs up front, And I know, like I said, a lot of people, when I talk about co-ownership, they always think about conflict first. And so when you talk about marriage, you can't go in thinking about conflict first, right? And like we talked about earlier, really separating the business from the emotional, and finding that balance, because it is important. Is there anything? Okay, I'm sorry, you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to say, you really should talk about conflict. How do you handle conflict? Because conflict is always going to be there when two people are getting to know each other. Conflict is not a bad thing. It's how you handle conflict. Do you fight fair, or are you hitting below the belt? Are you putting a person down, or are you just, conflict is a way of recognizing, oh, we have a difference. All right, how do we get to agreement? So it could be a compromise, it could be agree to disagree, or if you can communicate your feeling about a situation, you might actually change somebody's mind. So conflict is always present in marriages and relationships and in business, but that's why you have certain boundaries, and also a way that you don't cross a line of disrespect to just overcome that conflict, right? Because the conflict is there to help you get to know one another. And so that's why I really do think, and that's the problem with people falling in love, is that they're just looking at things through rosy colored glasses, but they're not looking at the conflict that's just below the surface that's going to come out, and how they would deal with that, right? So yeah, I think we need more of that. I really wish people would go for counseling before they actually decided to get married, or even get engaged or move in together. But unfortunately, people don't think that way. They only think about counseling when they're already so deep in that rabbit hole that a lot of times the counseling just leads them to the divorce or the separation or the breakup.
So do you think it's important to have that intermediary in between two partners to be able to resolve conflict?
If you don't know how to do it on your own, yes, because that person can be almost like an interpreter of communicating, or restating certain things. And I think a lot of times with women, we are so indoctrinated into not speaking our minds, from the time we were little girls in the classroom. You'll hear the teacher ask a question, and boys will raise their hand even if they don't know the answer, and girls might not, because they've been taught to be quiet, to be agreeable, to be nice, and they have this inner conflict of being able to speak up. And so what happens over time is that it's necessary to speak up, and unless they learn how to finesse that communication, what they end up doing is working up this energy, and it comes out as anger, right? So in order for them to speak up, they're angry, or they come off half cocked, and and then men say, well, what's wrong with her? She's crazy. It's because it took so much energy to be able to speak up, right? So if you're that type of woman who has not learn to finesse your communication style so that you can say things and not feel like crazy when you're saying it, then you definitely need a third party in there to help sort of mediate the communication. And then, but there's always time to learn, right? Like that's the thing. We're a work in progress until we die. So you may not be good at it now, but you could always get better.
Yes. Absolutely. I agree. I agree. And I feel like I'm that woman, that, as I'm in my growth state, that's something that I'm working on, my communication and not holding everything in and bottling it up, because then that makes me kind of passive aggressive. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Then one day I just explode, So I'm glad that you brought that up. If there was one thing that needed to be in that prenup, like that one most important crucial thing when you think about co-ownership and people going in business together in partnership and buying property, what would that thing be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Because when I think about prenups, I think about how do we dissolve this without breaking it?
Okay.
Is that,
Yes.
so how do we end our marriage without breaking all the human beings that are affected by it? Right. And eliminate all the anger that could possibly come up in that situation. So for whatever the reason may be that this relationship no longer works, how do we dissolve it and leave everyone whole? And I would say in the same way with co-ownership, because what if I decide I'm dissolving my partnership with you, we own this building together, and I want to sell it to some unscrupulous person or some landlord who's like a slumlord or whatever, that's going to hurt you. So I think knowing how you would dissolve something, and you put things in place. So if we decide that you are going to dissolve your partnership in this, I remain owner. Maybe I have the first right of first refusal to be able to buy you out, or I may have to approve whoever you want to bring in that you want to sell your half to, so that there's some kind of alignment there, right? Because you're like going into partner with one person, and then all of a sudden they're like, no, 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 this person's taking over, and you're like, oh my God,
Right.
that could really break you. So that to me would be the most important thing, is to put the stop gaps in there on how we dissolve this without ruining everyone, so that everybody comes out whole.
Yeah, it's usually the opposite. When people go into conflict, it's like you against me. I'm going to ruin you and whoever wins. And, so I think it's really changing how people deal with those situations and putting something in place like a prenup that kind of directs them on what to do if something happens. So I guess my last question is, when you think about co-ownership, or when folks think about co-ownership, there's always like this negative thing that comes with it because of that conflict, right? And so what would you say as a relationship expert to make people feel more comfortable with building or growing a relationship in a business partnership to buy property together?
Well, I can tell you that a lot of the folks that are out there who are mega, owners of real estate use other people's money. And using other people's money is actually a partnership. And so if you feel that you have to do everything by yourself, then you're going to struggle. You're more likely to lose more money, and also not realize your dreams. So, like I said before, the trend is, collaboration, cooperation, and uniting with people who are like-minded and accomplishing major things together. And sometimes done is better than perfect. So just getting to that place where you can actually accomplish these things is better than just having this absolutely perfect scenario, because I think people don't pull the trigger on certain things, especially when it comes to investing, because everything needs to be perfect, and perfection doesn't exist. There's always going to be something that comes up. So just minimize, try to mitigate the issues, the major issues, as much as you can. In the same way with a marriage, there's no one perfect person out there. They're all going to come with their stuff. You have stuff, you're not perfect, everyone. And there's going to be stuff that you're going to have to tolerate forever because they may never change. And just find the person that has flaws that you can tolerate, and then move on, because nobody's perfect. So that's what I would say. That partnership is huge if you really want to get there. I look at people like Grant Cardone and all these people who are investing all kinds of money. They're collaborating with other people. They're not doing it with their money.
Right. Absolutely. And people don't think about it. It's just on a smaller scale, right? All right, so that's good. Any lasting words? Any, as we, as I put this matching logic together to get people to collaborate with each other, is there anything that you would suggest, or any, lasting words that would make people feel more comfortable in doing these types of partnerships?
I would say if you need to clean up your belief system, because what we say and what we do comes from what we believe. And if your beliefs are not supporting your goals, so if you really want to accomplish something and you're not getting there, that means that your belief system needs a lot of retweaking, and perhaps maybe spring cleaning, or whatever you want to call it. So it is challenging to do on your own. So I'm a big believer, and I'm not pushing myself, but I work with people on things like that. I'm helping to improve their belief system, because that's the one thing that will dictate how you speak and how you act, and it's what you believe. So if you don't know how to do that on your own, reach out to a professional that can help you with that, because beliefs are just thoughts that you keep thinking, and you can change that at any given time. And you look around at every aspect of your life, and wherever you're not having success, look at the belief that you have about that area, and that's what needs to change in order for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
I love that. I work on my belief system all the time, because we grow up believing certain things that our parents have taught us, that our peers have taught us, that society has taught us, that aren't true. And then when you become an adult, you start realizing that who made this up, right? Who said that this was true? And you start creating your own belief system. So thank you for that. So thank you so much, Arlene, for joining me today. I think that, the things that we talked about, people need to hear, and I'm so happy that I'm able to work with a relationship expert that actually uses science and data to help their clients. So I appreciate you. I thank you for coming on. And I look forward to having another conversation.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure meeting with you, Nikki. And I'm so impressed that you have the foresight to understand that people need to learn about relationships in order for them to be more successful in business and partnerships. This is not just about romantic relationships. So I love that you know this, and I love that you're spreading the word. And thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And we'll talk soon.